International Financial Center, your gateway to growth.
In this edition of CNN Marketplace Middle East, as OPEC heads of state gather in Riyadh to discuss oil and the dollar, Arab business leaders discuss reforms in Cairo. We'll have the fallout. Plus, the tickets don't cost a lot, but executives say these airlines deliver quality. The emergence of low-cost carriers in the region. Hello and welcome to CNN Marketplace Middle East. I'm John Defterios. Our top story, OPEC, oil, and the dollar. Oil flirts with $100 a barrel this week as OPEC leaders debate the dollar peg. The OPEC heads of state met in Riyadh and indicated that the cartel would move to increase production by 500,000 barrels at its meeting next month. But the real fireworks involve whether some countries in the region should continue to peg their currency to the U.S. dollar. With the dollar declining and the Middle East growing rapidly, inflation is a very real problem in the region. Saudi Arabia, which has been a stalwart dollar supporter, indicated it is willing to discuss monetary reform. I caught up with the man at the helm of the largest private bank in the UAE, Abdelaziz Al Gharer, to get his take on the dollar peg issue.
U.S. economy is slowing down, our economy is taking off, and we want to slow down our economy. Most countries are going to a basket of currencies, and we look where is our flow of currencies, our trading partners, and maybe that's the directional most countries have adopted. We'll probably see a basket of currency moving forward.
Kuwait abandoned the dollar peg earlier this year, making it the only GCC country to currently use a basket of currencies. While the OPEC heads of state met in Riyadh, some of the region's business leaders gathered in Cairo. As Anish Rahman reports, despite impressive economic growth, the region still has to tackle issues like poverty and unemployment.
They are part businessmen, part agents of social change, pushing to lower trade barriers, limit government bureaucracy, and increase investment in the Middle East. For the Arab Business Council, formed 4 years ago, times are good, and at a recent annual gathering in Cairo, they acknowledge the success.
Opportunities exist because of you, because of the Arab business community that is starting to assert itself, that is starting to place itself on the world economic map.
Corporate Arabia has a lot going for it. The Middle East is becoming a more competitive and business-friendly environment, keen to not let India and China monopolize growth. Egypt, for example, has seen investment jump 400% in 4 years, amid a period of major domestic economic reform. And oil money from the Gulf, which used to head westward to Europe and the U.S., is now getting reinvested back into Gulf states. It all presents both an incredible opportunity and daunting responsibility.
The ability of the governments and society at large to manage this change and to absorb these investments and absorb them effectively, I think is going to be the big question in the next 24 months.
This is a part of the world where increased growth rates used to be an economic end to themselves. But with average growth running at 7% for 4 years and $1 trillion of investments on the books, governments are now realizing growth has to instead be a means to something else.
Their own regimes are at stake if they do not deliver opportunities for employment, as you mentioned, to the rest of their population. 80 million jobs need to be created over the next 10 years just to sustain the same level of unemployment in this region.
The Middle East is at a crossroads. Investment is pouring in, economies are growing, but poverty remains high, unemployment in many areas as well. And unless governments commit to fixing those issues, the recent economic success could be short-lived. For their part, the business community is doing everything it can to make sure that does not happen. Anish Rahman for Marketplace Middle East in Cairo.
So the big question is, will reforms continue with record high oil prices? I asked Sheikh Mohammed Al Khalifa of the Bahrain Economic Development Board if the surge in prices will dampen the climate for change when we sat down for some FaceTime this week in Dubai.
The reforms are being done for an aspirational reasons rather than necessity. So we're trying to move to the post-oil era because we want to. And therefore, because of this aspirational aspect, trying to get to, as opposed to people pushing us to go somewhere we don't want to go.
How do you redefine Bahrain's role? I mean, traditionally it's been a financial center, but you have Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, even Abu Dhabi emerging in financial services. How do you redefine it to sustain a lead, do you think?
The rising tide lifts a lot of places, and as the region is booming and growing, financial services are growing throughout the region. And Bahrain's strength has been and will continue to be its human capital, the people that have led the financial sector and the long-standing regulations that have been established in Bahrain.
Strategically, and a geopolitical question here, the Crown Prince Salman, came out and declared what Iran's intentions really are, in his view, for a nuclear policy, and called for greater diplomacy right ahead of a visit by the president of Iran to the country. What's the motivation here?
We feel that the distraction being caused by the Iranian nuclear issue is holding investment back in the region as a whole and increasing the security threats of the region. You know, nobody's debating the right to peaceful nuclear power, but we all have that need, and we all need a peaceful resolution to this.
Historically, Iran has even made claims against Bahrain. What do you do now moving forward? Do you try to bring Russia, China, and the United States and the European Union closer together in terms of where we should be going in the future?
We've resolved our historical issues with Iran, and we are well beyond that. But going forward, this is such an important issue affecting security worldwide that we feel it's important and a level high enough that we need all the powers in the world involved, because it does affect everybody.
Can the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, become much tighter as an organization to have a voice in that process, as opposed to speaking from the sidelines and hoping the major powers move forward?
Absolutely. I mean, the GCC is speaking with a unified voice. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia came out with a proposal for providing the nuclear fuel from an independent authority. Then this was completely backed by the GCC, and we are all moving forward and are willing to play a beneficial role to resolving this issue.
Bahrain will back the ratification of a UN anti-corruption treaty joining Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE. You're watching Marketplace Middle East. Coming up, new planes, cheap tickets, the emergence of low-cost carriers in the region. Stay with us.
Dubai International Financial Center, your gateway to growth.
Investing is an art. The art of exploring new opportunities and discovering new horizons. The art of creativity. The art of creating a bold vision. And with a portfolio of diverse investments, there is an art to creating success. Artalk, the art of investment.
Is rising, waiting for you to come. It's time to visit Indonesia.
Stay connected to the world with CNN's new mobile internet service. Late-breaking news, reporting from the field. Get it all free, anywhere, on any type of mobile phone. It's new and it doesn't cost a thing. Use your phone or your PC to log on to cnnmobile.com and be the first to know.
People sometimes pay with their lives for saying what they think. I have examples that prove it.
Theoretically, you have courts. In practice, the courts adopt decisions dictated from above.
Mr. Putin, may God forgive you for what you have done to beloved Russia and its people.
The dark side of Putin's Russia.
What does freedom really mean here?
A CNN special investigation with Christian Amanpour. Tsar Putin, Saturday on CNN.
Dubai International Financial Center, your gateway to growth.
Welcome back to Marketplace Middle East. For air travelers in the U.S. or Europe, it's no big deal to book a ticket with the budget airline. But in the Middle East, the big flag carriers have just recently been joined by some nimble upstarts. We focus on how low-cost carriers are changing travel throughout the region. For Bini Yadav and her family, flying on holiday is a luxury.
Hi, good morning.
With 2 children and a husband, the price for 4 airline tickets adds up. But now low-cost carriers like Kuwait's Jazeera Airlines fit their budget.
We have saved a lot that we could spend somewhere else in shopping and just moving and all. That is quite a comfort and economy also.
Thank you.
Yadav and her family saved about 50% by choosing the low-cost carrier. For many people around the world, low-cost carriers are an easy travel option. But the concept is still relatively new here in the Middle East. About 7% of travelers in the Middle East fly on low-cost carriers, while air travel on low-cost carriers in Europe and America hovers around 30%.
As we've seen in Europe, LCCs actually develop markets that nobody realized existed, and that's one of the exciting things. Of course, they will cannibalize some of the traffic from the established operators, particularly on routes, say, from the Gulf to the Indian subcontinent. However, they will also create new links that will appeal to business travelers.
Government-owned Air Arabia has been operating from Sharjah for just over 3 years. Just named Low-Cost Carrier of the Year at the Aviation Business Awards, Air Arabia did a spring IPO to fund expansion.
To start a low cost, you need certain key issues to be available in your area of business. One of which was having an open sky within the same region. Low cost has been very successful on domestic markets within America, within Europe. Rest of the world has taken a bit longer because our political system was a bit slow. However, about 3 years ago, things have changed.
But there is still bias associated with low-cost carriers in the Gulf, with some linking lower prices to older planes and bad service. The CEO of Nasser, the first low-cost carrier in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, says that is simply not true.
Next January, we start delivery of our first new aircraft. So in the first 4 months of next year, we'll be flying brand new aircraft, 6 new aircraft coming in. So that's not cheap, but it's providing great value for people.
And great value is exactly what Yadav and her family are looking for. And finally, peace through business. This week, Quartet envoy Tony Blair announced a series of initiatives aimed at strengthening both the Palestinian economy and the Palestinian Authority. Blair made the announcement Monday with members of the Israeli government in advance of next week's Middle East summit in the U.S. We'll sit down with Israeli President Shimon Peres to discuss the impact business can have on peace.
You have an absurd. You have governments that were created in an age that doesn't exist anymore. Governments have armies and police and laws, but they don't have strengths. Bill Gates doesn't have a police force, and Google doesn't have an army. They are based on goodwill all the time.
Don't forget to tune in for that next week. If you want more information on any of our stories, please visit our website, cnn.com/MME. Thanks for joining us for this edition of CNN Marketplace Middle East. I'm John Defterios. We'll see you back here next week.
Dubai International Financial Center, your gateway to growth.